He woke up early in the morning, as he had done every day before the accident. The sunlight spilled through the small window of his farmhouse, painting the wooden walls with soft orange light. The smell of wet soil and the distant sound of roosters calling greeted him, reminding him of the life he used to lead. He moved slowly in his wheelchair, feeling the rough wooden floor under his hands as he pushed himself toward the kitchen. The morning routine was no longer simple. Tasks that were once easy now required careful planning and patience. Pouring tea, arranging bread on a plate, and opening the shutters demanded extra effort and concentration. He remembered the days when he would wake up, stretch, and run barefoot across the fields. He could feel the warm earth, smell the fresh grass, and hear the wind moving through the trees. Those memories made him ache for the freedom he had lost. Sitting by the window, he looked outside at his farm. The fields stretched far and wide, some parts lush with crops and others bare, waiting for seeds. He had always taken pride in his work, but now the thought of tending to the land alone felt overwhelming. There were tools leaning against the wall, seeds in small bags, and piles of harvested vegetables waiting to be sorted. All of it demanded more than he could manage on his own. The accident had changed everything. A simple slip on the wet slope of his field had left him with broken bones and a spine injury that confined him to the wheelchair. Recovery had been slow, painful, and lonely. Friends had visited at first, but many drifted away over time. His family lived far, and the nearest neighbors had their own lives to manage. The world seemed to move on while he remained trapped in his body. Despite all that, he refused to give up. He had grown up on this farm, learning from his father the value of hard work and patience. Those lessons now guided him, even as he faced daily struggles. Today he decided he would check the crops in the distant field. It was a small victory, but each small victory mattered. He prepared the wheelchair with extra care, making sure it could handle the uneven ground. He gathered the tools he might need and packed a small bag with water and snacks. Leaving the farmhouse, he felt the familiar breeze on his face. The wind carried the scent of soil and the faint aroma of wildflowers from the edge of the forest. Pushing himself down the narrow path toward the fields, he felt both excitement and anxiety. Every bump and crack in the dirt road reminded him of his new limitations. A small stumble could mean a long wait for help, but he moved carefully, thinking of nothing but the rows of crops waiting for attention. The fields were alive with activity. Birds flitted among the plants, insects buzzed in the warm air, and the earth beneath looked rich and promising. He paused for a moment to take it all in, closing his eyes and letting the sun warm his face. He remembered the way he used to walk through these fields with a sense of pride, touching the leaves, checking the soil, and planning the harvest. Now he did the same from his wheelchair, adjusting his tools and strategies to match his strength. Working on the farm was not just about survival. It was a form of meditation, a way to keep his mind busy, to fight the loneliness, and to feel connected to life. Hours passed as he sorted vegetables, checked irrigation, and adjusted supports for the plants. His hands ached, his back felt stiff, but he continued. Each task completed brought a sense of accomplishment. When fatigue began to creep in, he leaned back and watched the horizon. The sun was higher now, and the sky was a clear blue, promising warmth and light for the rest of the day. He thought of the future and the possibility of finding companionship again. Love had seemed impossible after the accident. People saw him only as a man in a wheelchair, forgetting the person he still was inside. Yet a small hope lingered, a quiet voice telling him that life could still surprise him. A sound in the distance caught his attention. A figure was walking along the edge of the field, carrying a small basket. It was someone from the nearby village, a woman who often helped with seasonal work or errands for farmers. She noticed him immediately, waving and smiling warmly. He returned the gesture, feeling a flutter of nervousness he had not felt in a long time. Their first words were simple, talking about the weather and the crops, but there was a genuine kindness in her tone. She did not treat him differently, nor did she look at him with pity. For the first time in months, he felt seen as a person rather than just a disabled man. She offered to help with some of the heavier work, and he accepted, grateful but careful not to feel dependent. Together, they adjusted the irrigation, lifted baskets, and shared small stories about life on the farm. There was laughter, quiet and soft at first, growing more comfortable as the morning passed. When a difficult task came up, she suggested solutions he had not thought of, showing her intelligence and care. He began to realize that having help did not mean weakness. It could be a shared strength, a connection that made challenges easier and life more meaningful. They ate a simple lunch under the shade of a large tree, sharing bread and fruit. Conversation flowed naturally, touching on dreams, fears, and the beauty of the land. He felt a warmth in his chest, an unfamiliar comfort that reminded him of the life he once had, and hinted at something new. After lunch, they continued work until the sun began to lower. His muscles ached, and sweat covered his brow, but he felt a deep satisfaction. The farm was a place of hardship, but it was also a place of hope. As he prepared to return to the farmhouse, he felt a sense of accomplishment and connection that had been missing for months. The woman promised to visit again, and he watched her walk back toward the village, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. Back inside, he reflected on the day. Life had given him a harsh blow, but it had also given him resilience and the possibility of new relationships. He looked at the fields bathed in late afternoon light, feeling a quiet determination. Tomorrow would bring more work, more challenges, and perhaps more moments of unexpected kindness. He pushed himself toward the bedroom, knowing that sleep would come soon, and with it, dreams of a life rebuilt step by step, filled with hope and maybe love. The next morning, he woke up feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Yesterday had been different from any other day in a long time. The simple presence of another person on the farm had brought a warmth he had forgotten. He pushed himself slowly toward the kitchen, thinking of the woman who had visited. He wondered if she would come again and what stories she might have to share. The day started with routine chores: feeding the animals, checking the water supply, and inspecting the crops. Each movement required careful planning, but his mind was more focused than usual. There was a sense of anticipation that added energy to his work. While he was collecting eggs from the chicken coop, he saw her walking along the path toward the farm. She carried a small bundle of fresh vegetables from her home garden. Her face lit up when she saw him, and he found himself smiling without thinking. They greeted each other and started talking about the plants and weather. She noticed a patch of soil that needed extra care and offered to help him prepare it. Together, they worked side by side, adjusting the tools to make it easier for him to manage. Her hands were quick and precise, moving with confidence as she showed him small techniques to water the plants more efficiently. He listened carefully, absorbing each suggestion, realizing that her knowledge was valuable and that her presence made hard work feel lighter. They shared stories while they worked. He spoke about his childhood on the farm, the dreams he had for the land, and how the accident had changed his life. She listened without judgment, nodding and asking gentle questions that encouraged him to open up further. She spoke about her own experiences, her family, and the simple joys she found in helping others. The conversation flowed naturally, filled with laughter and moments of quiet understanding. As the sun rose higher, the temperature increased. They took a short break under the shade of a tree near the field. He offered her some water, and she shared a small piece of bread. The simplicity of the moment made it feel meaningful. He realized that connection could exist in these small acts, in shared work and mutual respect. When they returned to the field, a sudden problem arose. One of the irrigation channels had become blocked, and water was pooling in the wrong area. He tried to fix it on his own, but quickly realized it would be too difficult. She immediately offered to help, and together they moved stones and adjusted the channel. Her presence made the task manageable, and he felt a sense of partnership that he had not experienced in a long time. While working, he noticed her noticing small details he had overlooked. She suggested moving a row of young plants slightly to get more sunlight and advised on trimming certain leaves to encourage growth. Her guidance was precise but gentle, and he appreciated her insight. There was a sense of teamwork that lifted his spirits. As afternoon approached, they paused again to rest. He looked at the rows of plants now neatly arranged and watered, feeling proud of their progress. The work had been hard, but it was fulfilling. He realized that life, even after hardship, could still hold moments of beauty and satisfaction. They spoke about the future of the farm, exchanging ideas about crops, techniques, and how to make the land more productive. He listened carefully to her suggestions, impressed by her knowledge and practical thinking. The conversation turned to more personal topics. He shared his fears about remaining isolated and dependent on others. She responded with kindness, explaining that everyone faced challenges and that life was richer when people supported each other. Her words were simple, but resonated deeply with him. There was no pity in her tone, only encouragement. A gentle breeze swept across the fields, carrying the scent of flowers and freshly turned soil. I felt a calm settle over him, a sense of comfort that he had not felt in months. He realized that friendship and trust could begin in the most unexpected places. She asked if he would like to take a break by the edge of the stream that ran near the farm. He agreed, curious to see the water that reflected the sky. Moving his wheelchair carefully, he followed her along the narrow path. When they reached the stream, he noticed the sunlight dancing on the water. She suggested sitting on the grass while he rested. They talked quietly, listening to the sound of the water and the rustling leaves. He found himself telling her things he had never shared with anyone about hopes, regrets, and dreams that had felt distant since the accident. She listened, nodding and offering gentle encouragement. There was no rush in their conversation, no pressure, only a slow unfolding of understanding. After some time, they returned to the farm. Evening approached, and the sky began to change color. He felt tired but happy, as if the weight of the day had been shared and made lighter. She helped him store tools, collect leftover vegetables, and organize the barn. Each action was filled with care and respect, making him feel capable rather than dependent. Before leaving, she suggested they meet again the next day to continue tending the farm. He agreed, a quiet excitement building inside him. After she left, he remained in the barn for a while, reflecting on the day. He realized that the accident had not taken away his ability to connect with others, to feel joy, or to find companionship. The possibility of friendship and perhaps something more lingered in his mind, a spark of hope that he had not expected. He prepared for the evening, tending to small chores in the house and making sure everything was ready for the night. He settled into bed. He thought about the simple, yet profound moments of the day. The laughter, the shared work, and the quiet understanding had brought life back into his routine. He drifted into sleep with a sense of calm and anticipation, knowing that tomorrow could bring more connection, more learning, and more steps toward rebuilding a life that had seemed so fragile. The day had shown him that help and kindness could come in the form of companionship and shared purpose. Life could still surprise him, and even in hardship, there could be moments of warmth, understanding, and the beginnings of trust and friendship. The next day dawned clear and bright, the sky painted with soft shades of orange and pink. He woke with a sense of purpose that had been missing for a long time. The previous days had brought unexpected companionship and a spark of hope he had thought was gone. He moved slowly in his wheelchair toward the kitchen, preparing a small breakfast and planning the work ahead. The farm needed attention, and today he wanted to make progress with the help of the woman who had come twice before. As he worked, he thought about the way she moved through the fields, her hands skilled and confident, her voice calm and encouraging. Her presence had made the chores easier, but more importantly, it had reminded him that life could still be shared, that trust could be rebuilt. When she arrived carrying a basket with some supplies and fresh fruit, he felt a warmth in his chest. She greeted him with a smile, and they exchanged small talk about the morning weather and the condition of the crops. Then they set to work, tending the fields together. Today, they focused on planting new seeds in a patch that had been cleared the day before. He guided the wheelchair carefully along the rows, while she showed him how to space the seeds and gently press them into the soil. Their movements were coordinated, a rhythm that came naturally from working together. The conversation flowed as easily as the work. He spoke of his memories of the farm when he was younger, of the seasons changing, and the hard work that came with each. She shared stories from her village, tales of neighbors helping one another, and lessons learned from her own family. There was no judgment in their talk, only understanding and curiosity. At one point, A sudden gust of wind threatened to scatter the tools they had placed on the ground. He tried to reach for them, but his arms could not move quickly enough. She laughed softly and helped gather everything, her hands steady and gentle. In that moment, he realized that trust was not about weakness, but about allowing another person to be present in shared effort. As the morning moved on, they decided to take a break near a small hill that overlooked the farm. He watched her carefully climb to a comfortable spot, and she offered him a place next to her. The view was breathtaking, the green fields stretching into the distance, the sun warming the earth. They sat in silence for a few moments, letting the scene speak for itself. Then conversation returned, quieter now, more reflective. He spoke of his fears, of how lonely life had felt since the accident, and how he sometimes doubted that anyone could truly understand his struggles. She listened intently, her eyes showing empathy and concern. Then she shared her own difficulties, times when she had felt alone or uncertain. Their stories intertwined, building a sense of connection that went beyond work and routine. After the break, they returned to the fields. A problem had arisen with a section of the fence, which had been damaged by a recent storm. He maneuvered the wheelchair carefully to inspect it, while she helped assess the damage. Together, they planned the repair, sharing tasks and encouraging each other. It was hard work, but it felt different with her by his side. He felt capable, not limited, and the hours passed quickly as they repaired the fence and strengthened weak spots. Midday approached, and the sun grew warmer. They paused under a tree, sharing a simple meal. Conversation turned playful as they joked about their earlier clumsy moments in the fields, laughter ringing across the farm. He felt a sense of joy he had not known in months, a reminder that happiness could exist even after hardship. The afternoon was spent in careful tending of plants that required extra attention. She demonstrated techniques to protect the young crops from pests and encouraged him to try them with her guidance. His hands worked with renewed confidence, and he felt a sense of accomplishment in each task completed. As the day began to close, they moved toward the barn, storing tools and organizing supplies. The teamwork that had developed between them made the chores feel effortless, even when their bodies were tired. He realized that the bond they were forming was growing stronger, built on mutual respect, shared effort, and the simple act of being present with one another. Before leaving, she suggested they meet again tomorrow to continue their work and perhaps explore other parts of the farm together. He agreed, a quiet anticipation filling him as he watched her leave. Afterward, he remained in the barn for a while, reflecting on the events of the day. The work had been hard, but it had been filled with laughter, shared stories, and the quiet sense of connection that he had missed for so long. He realized that life after hardship could still contain moments of joy, that companionship could bring strength, and that trust could grow in the most unexpected ways. As evening approached, he returned to the farmhouse, tending to small chores and making sure everything was ready for the night. He looked out over the fields, bathed in the soft light of sunset, feeling a quiet determination. Bring more work, more challenges, and perhaps more opportunities to deepen the bond that was slowly forming. He settled into bed, thinking of the day's accomplishments and the possibility of friendship turning into something more. The world outside remained unchanged, the farm stretching into the distance, yet within him a sense of hope had begun to take root, promising that life could still hold connection, joy, and the beginnings of love. The morning arrived with a soft mist covering the fields, making everything look fresh and alive. He woke with a feeling of determination and a small spark of anticipation. The last few days had brought a rhythm to his life that he had not felt since the accident. The presence of someone who understood him and respected his independence had made even hard tasks feel lighter. Today they had planned to repair a section of the barn roof that had been damaged in a storm, a task that seemed daunting to handle alone but possible with her help. She arrived carrying a bag of tools, smiling as she waved at him from the path. He felt a warmth in his chest, a mix of relief and excitement. Their greetings were simple, but they held a sense of familiarity now. They discussed the plan for the morning, dividing tasks so that he could manage what was possible from his wheelchair while she handled the parts that required climbing or lifting. She encouraged him to take the lead where he could, offering guidance and support rather than taking over. As they worked, he felt a sense of partnership forming, a connection that went beyond chores and touched something deeper. The barn roof was tricky, requiring careful coordination. She would climb and adjust the boards while he stabilized the ladder and guided the pieces into place. There was a rhythm to their movements, a quiet understanding that developed naturally. He marveled at how capable she was, not just in physical work, but in knowing how to encourage him without making him feel weak or helpless. During a pause, he leaned against the wall of the barn, wiping sweat from his brow. She sat nearby, catching her breath and laughing softly at a small mistake he had made while trying to lift a board. He laughed with her, feeling a sense of ease and comfort. These small moments of shared humor and effort were slowly building trust and friendship. They spoke quietly about the past, about moments that had shaped their lives, and about dreams they still held. He admitted how lonely life had felt since the accident, and how hard it had been to ask for help. She shared her own experiences of facing challenges and learning to rely on others. There was no pity in their words, only understanding and acceptance. As midday approached, clouds began to gather in the sky. They decided to take a break under a tree, sharing a simple meal of bread, fruit, and water. The conversation turned lighter, with jokes about their clumsiness earlier in the morning and playful challenges about who could carry more tools without dropping them. Laughter filled the air, and he realized how much he had missed feeling this way, connected to another person in a genuine way. After the break, the work continued. Rain started to fall lightly, and they moved under the partial cover of the barn roof, adjusting their tasks to the weather. The light rain did not dampen their spirits. Instead, it added a sense of adventure and shared experience, a memory that would linger long after the day ended. During the work, he felt a sudden wave of self-doubt. The fear that he was not capable, that he was too limited, crept in. She noticed and paused, looking at him with gentle concern. She reminded him of all he had accomplished, of how skilled and thoughtful he was, and how much progress they had made together. Her words were simple, but they grounded him, allowing him to push aside the doubt and continue with focus. They finished the barn roof just as the rain stopped and the sun began to peek through the clouds. The repaired roof looked sturdy, and the sense of accomplishment was immense. He felt proud not just of the work, but of the teamwork, of the bond that had been strengthened through effort, patience, and care. In the evening, as they organized tools and cleaned up the workspace, they spoke about the farm and what they could do next together. Plans for planting, repairing fences, and organizing storage were discussed. He appreciated how she listened, asked questions, and contributed ideas. Their collaboration felt equal and supportive, building trust and friendship. Before she left, she suggested they meet the next day to continue working, and perhaps explore a new field he had been hesitant to visit alone. He agreed, feeling a quiet excitement he had not felt in months. Once she had gone, he remained in the barn for a while, reflecting on the day. The physical work had been hard, but the emotional experience had been even more significant. He realized that challenges could be faced with support, that friendship could transform loneliness into connection, and that vulnerability did not mean weakness. He looked out over the fields in the fading light, feeling a sense of calm and hope. Life after hardship was not simple, but it could be filled with moments of joy, laughter, trust, and the beginnings of deeper connection. As night fell, he settled into the farmhouse, completing small chores and preparing for rest. His mind replayed the events of the day, the shared work, and the quiet understanding between them. He drifted to sleep, feeling a renewed sense of strength and anticipation, ready to face the days ahead with determination, partnership, and the possibility of something more than friendship growing in the gentle bond they were forming. The morning was calm and golden as he woke early, ready to face another day on the farm. The past days had brought unexpected joy and companionship, transforming even small tasks into moments of connection. He pushed himself carefully toward the kitchen, preparing a light breakfast and thinking about the work that awaited him. The woman would arrive soon, and he felt a quiet excitement at the thought of seeing her again. Today they planned to harvest vegetables from the main field and transport them to the storage barn. It was a physically demanding task, but with help, it could be done efficiently and even enjoyably. When she arrived carrying baskets, he noticed how her presence seemed to brighten the entire farm. Their greetings had become warm and familiar, filled with small smiles and easy conversation. They discussed the plan for the day, dividing tasks in a way that allowed him to work within his abilities while she handled the heavier lifting and moving. As they moved through the fields, he felt a sense of partnership that went beyond simple cooperation. Every suggestion she made, every shared decision reminded him that he was not alone. The work continued steadily, harvesting ripe vegetables and carefully placing them in baskets. They moved together with a rhythm that had developed over days of shared effort. Conversations flowed naturally, covering everything from farm techniques to personal dreams and memories. He told her about the early mornings he spent with his father learning to plant seeds and care for animals, about the satisfaction of seeing crops grow under his hands. She shared stories from her own life, of helping neighbors and learning from elders in her village. There was no judgment, only a sense of shared understanding. At one point, a heavy basket tipped slightly, threatening to spill the vegetables. He reached quickly, but his strength was limited. She reacted immediately, steadying the basket and laughing softly at the close call. He laughed with her, feeling a warmth that went beyond the humor of the moment. In that small incident, he realized again that accepting help did not diminish him. It created connection and allowed tasks to be accomplished together. By midday, the sun was high, and they paused under the shade of a large tree to rest and eat. The conversation became more personal, quieter, and reflective. He admitted fears he had kept hidden, worries about being a burden, and whether life could hold happiness after the accident. She listened with gentle attention, offering words of encouragement and sharing her own experiences of overcoming obstacles. Their bond grew stronger, built on trust, respect, and the willingness to be open. As the afternoon sun began to lower, they resumed work, carrying baskets and organizing the vegetables in the barn. The physical effort was balanced by laughter and shared satisfaction. He felt a sense of accomplishment and pride, not just for the work done, but for the growing connection between them. As they finished storing the vegetables, she suggested taking a walk to a nearby hill that overlooked the farm. He agreed, maneuvering his wheelchair carefully along the path. At the top, the view was breathtaking, the fields stretching into the distance, bathed in the soft glow of late afternoon. They sat together, quiet for a moment, simply taking in the scenery. Then she spoke softly about the joy of seeing someone persevere through hardship, finding hope and purpose even in difficult circumstances. He listened, feeling a deep appreciation for her presence and understanding. In return, he shared his gratitude for her friendship and support, acknowledging how her company had brought new energy and meaning into his days. The conversation shifted naturally toward the possibility of deeper connection. He admitted feelings he had not expected to surface, emotions that had been buried under months of loneliness and self-doubt. She responded with honesty and warmth, expressing similar feelings and a desire to continue building a meaningful bond. They stayed on the hill until the sun dipped lower, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. The quiet companionship and shared experiences had created a foundation for trust, respect, and the beginnings of love. Returning to the farmhouse, they worked together to tidy the barn and put away tools. There was a sense of ease and teamwork that had grown over days of shared effort. The farm felt alive with their presence, each task infused with care and mutual support. As evening settled, he reflected on the journey of the past days. The accident had brought hardship and limitations, but it had not taken away his ability to connect, to find joy, or to experience love. The companionship he had found reminded him that life could still hold beauty, hope, and meaningful connection. He thought of the future, imagining more days of shared work, laughter, and quiet moments together. The farm, once a place of solitude and struggle, had become a space of partnership and possibility. As night fell, he settled into the farmhouse, completing small chores and preparing for rest. His mind replayed the day's events, the laughter, the shared work, and the gentle conversations that had strengthened their bond. He felt a sense of peace and anticipation, ready to face tomorrow with confidence, connection, and the promise of growing love. Life had shifted from hardship to hope, from solitude to companionship, and he knew that the journey ahead would be brighter because of the friendship and trust that had blossomed into something deeper and enduring. The days after the harvest felt different in a quiet but powerful way. He woke each morning with purpose and calm. The farm no longer felt like a place of struggle alone, but a place shared with care and understanding. He moved through his routine with steady hands and a focused mind, making tea, arranging tools, checking the fields. Every task carried a sense of meaning. He often thought about how much had changed in a short time. Not the land itself, but his heart and the way he looked at life. The woman continued to visit regularly. Some days they worked together from sunrise until late afternoon. Other days they simply talked while doing lighter tasks, cleaning storage areas, sorting seeds, planning future crops. There was comfort in the silence they shared. No need to fill every moment with words. Their presence beside each other was enough. One morning they decided to visit a distant part of the farm that he had avoided since the accident. The path was uneven and narrow, and fear had kept him away. With her encouragement, he agreed to try. She walked beside him, watching the wheels carefully, helping guide when the ground dipped or turned rough. Each small movement forward felt like a victory. When they reached the open field he had not seen in years, he stopped and took a deep breath. The land stretched wide and open, untouched and full of possibility. Emotion rose in his chest, but he stayed calm. She stood beside him, offering quiet support. In that moment, he felt strong, not because his body had changed, but because his fear had softened. They spent time there planning what could grow in that field one day, talking about seasons, rain, and patience. He realized that love was not loud or dramatic. It was steady and patient, like farming itself. As days passed, people from nearby areas began to notice the changes on the farm. The land looked healthier, more organized, more alive. Some stopped by to offer help or conversation. He was no longer seen only as the man in the wheelchair, but as someone still capable, still leading his life with dignity. The woman encouraged these interactions, gently stepping back when needed, allowing him to speak for himself. Her respect gave him confidence. One afternoon, as they rested under a tree, he spoke honestly about his fears of the future, about whether he could truly give someone a full life. She listened quietly, then spoke with calm certainty. She said life was not measured by physical ability, but by care, effort, and heart. Her words settled deep inside him. He felt understood without being judged. The bond between them grew deeper, not through grand promises, but through daily actions. Shared meals, shared work, shared silence. One evening, as the sky turned soft and dark, they sat near the farmhouse watching the fields rest. He spoke about gratitude, about how he once believed his life had ended with the accident. Now he saw it had simply changed direction. She reached out, placing her hand near his, not to fix or lead, but to be present. That simple gesture carried more meaning than words. From that day forward, they moved as partners, planning future harvests, adjusting the farm to suit his mobility, finding ways to grow both food and connection. Love did not arrive suddenly. It grew slowly, like a seed, watered daily by patience, trust, and kindness. The farm, once shaped by hardship, became a place of renewal. He understood now that strength was not about standing or walking. It was about continuing, choosing hope, choosing connection, choosing life. And in that choice he found not only peace, but a love built to last. The season began to change slowly in the farm, responded with quiet beauty. The air felt cooler in the mornings, and the light carried a softer tone. He noticed these changes more than ever now. Each day felt important, not rushed, but meaningful. He woke early as always, but his thoughts were no longer heavy. There was calm in his mind and strength in his chest. He moved through his routine with steady focus, preparing tea, checking notes, planning the work ahead. The woman continued to be part of his days, not as a helper, but as a constant presence. Some mornings she arrived early, and other days she came later, but her energy always matched his pace. They had learned each other without effort, knowing when to speak, when to stay quiet, when to push forward, and when to rest. One day, they decided to prepare the farm for the coming season. This meant clearing older plants, repairing paths, and organizing storage areas. The work was slow but steady. He guided decisions from his wheelchair, and she carried them out with care and respect. There was no sense of imbalance between them. Each had a role, and each role mattered. As they worked, he spoke about ideas for making the farm more accessible. Raised beds, wider paths, better storage placement. She listened and added thoughtful suggestions. Together, they turned limitations into solutions. The farm slowly transformed into a place designed not around loss, but around possibility. Visitors began to notice. Some came out of curiosity, others to offer help or learn. He spoke openly about his journey without shame. About the accident, the fear, the loneliness, and the slow return of hope. His words carried honesty and strength. People listened not out of pity, but respect. The woman stayed nearby, offering quiet support, never taking attention away from him. Her presence gave him confidence. One afternoon, after a long day of work, they sat near the fields, watching clouds drift slowly. He shared a truth he had never spoken aloud, that he once believed he would never be loved again, that the wheelchair had made him feel invisible. She listened carefully, then spoke with warmth and clarity. She said love was not about what the body could do, but about how the heart stayed open. Her words stayed with him. In the days that followed, they continued building not just the farm, but a life shaped by patience and care. Meals were shared, often simple food grown from the land. Conversations were honest, sometimes quiet, sometimes filled with laughter. There was no pressure to define anything. What they had grew naturally, like crops tended with time and respect. One evening, a storm passed through, heavy rain, strong wind. He worried about the fields, but they waited until morning. When they went out together, the land had held strong. Small damage here and there, but nothing lost. He felt proud, not just of the farm, but of himself. He had rebuilt more than soil and fences. He had rebuilt belief. As the weeks passed, he realized something had changed deeply inside him. Fear no longer controlled his choices. He moved forward even when unsure. He allowed connection without guarding his heart. The woman remained steady beside him, not demanding, not rushing, simply sharing life. One quiet morning he told her that his life felt full again. That hardship had shaped him but not broken him. She smiled and said growth often came through struggle. They continued their work, side by side. The farm thrived and so did they. There was no dramatic ending, no grand moment. Just two people choosing each other every day through effort, kindness, and trust. He understood now that love was not something that arrived suddenly. It was something built slowly through shared days, shared work, shared hope. The wheelchair no longer defined him. The accident no longer defined his future. What defined him now was resilience, purpose, and connection. And in that steady, grounded life, he found a love that felt real, lasting, and deeply human. The days moved gently forward, and the farm settled into a steady rhythm. He noticed how time no longer felt heavy. Mornings arrived with purpose, and evenings ended with calm. He woke before sunrise, listening to the quiet sounds of the land. Birds shifting leaves, moving wind passing softly. He prepared his day, slowly checking plans, thinking through tasks, feeling ready. The woman continued to be part of his life, not through routine, but through choice. Some days they worked long hours, and other days they rested, talked, or simply sat together watching the land breathe. There was comfort in knowing nothing had to be forced. One morning they decided to open a small section of the farm to local families. Not for profit, but for connection. A place where people could visit, help learn, and share food. He felt nervous at first, wondering if he was ready for that level of openness. She encouraged him, reminding him how far he had come. Together they prepared the space, clearing paths, arranging seating, setting up simple work areas. When the first visitors arrived, he felt a mix of fear and pride. But as conversations began and laughter spread, his worries softened. People listened to his story with respect. Children asked questions with curiosity, not judgment. He felt seen fully. The farm became a place of shared energy. Over time, these visits became regular. The land was no longer quiet with loneliness, but alive with purpose. He guided discussions, taught what he knew, and learned in return. The woman stayed close, supporting without leading, allowing him to stand in his role fully. Their partnership felt balanced and strong. One afternoon, after everyone had left, they sat together feeling tired but fulfilled. He spoke about how he once feared being forgotten. Now he felt rooted again. She smiled and said roots grew deeper after storms. That thought stayed with him. As weeks passed, they continued improving the farm together, adjusting tools, paths, systems, making everything work smoothly with intention. He realized that love had quietly shaped the land just as much as effort had. It was present in every decision made together, in every pause taken when needed. One evening, as the sun dipped low, they shared a quiet moment near the fields. He spoke honestly about the future, about uncertainty and hope. She listened and said whatever path came next, they would walk it together in their own way. That simple promise held more meaning than any declaration. The farm rested peacefully under the evening sky. He felt gratitude, not loud or overwhelming, but deep and steady. Life had not returned to what it was before. It had become something new, something honest, something real. And in that truth he found peace, strength, and love that felt earned and enduring.